إن الحمد لله تعالى نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا ومن يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. Indeed, all praise is due to Allah. We praise Him. We seek refuge with Allah from the evil in our souls and from our sinful deeds. Those who are guided by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, no one can misguide them. Those who are not guided by Allah, there is no guide for them. I bear witness that there is no deity, there is no God worthy of worship except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is His servant and messenger. O you who believe, revere Allah as He should be revered, and die not except as Muslims. Amma ba'd. I would like to welcome you to the Islamic Society Leading American Muslims, otherwise known as ISLAM Inc., an organization established to conduct dawah. And having said that, I made 3 presentations last week at Eastern Florida State. This week I'll be making a presentation, inshallah, in the History Department at the University of Central Florida on ISIS. This will be the second time I've actually made a similar presentation. This one, obviously, because of recent events, will be a little bit different than the previous one. But I covet your prayers as we are traveling and taking a stance against these atrocious acts, these acts that are not Islamic in any way, shape, fashion, or form, that are totally juxtaposed to everything that Islam teaches. We are experiencing more and more hatred, more and more negativism. So we covet your prayers as we are doing that. But we welcome you here today. I want to reiterate the fact that this morning when I arrived to the masjid, I was hugging someone at this door waiting to have a meeting with Imam Tariq. Another man walked out and said, "Oh, Imam Sykes, Imam Sykes." Imam Sykes, the other brother said, "I want you to meet him." And he said, "Yeah, he's no Imam, look at how he's dressed." So this is what we're trying to fight against. We're trying to, so you know what I said? I had a big smile on my face and I said, that's what we come to the masjid for, to be castigated, criticized, and indicted. I said, "Salaam alaikum, brother," and I came inside. So, you know, we have to continue to stand up against this. If it's happening to me, I hate to know what's happening to other people. And maybe I'm just so special that it's just happening to me alone.
What is happening to you?
Oh, you didn't hear the story just then?
I was eating my...
That's okay. Since I'm on the camera, I'll tell you after class. Because I don't want to repeat it on the camera. It doesn't go over too much. So, alhamdulillah, who's here for the first time today? Anybody? Do we have a new person? This is unusual that we don't have anybody new, but alhamdulillah, maybe they'll come later. December the 26th will be our potluck. Please mark your calendar accordingly at 6 p.m. at St. Luke's. We're still collecting non-perishables. As you see, every week we have a couple of bags that we take to a local food shelter. It's a form of dawah. We're still collecting unbroken cell phones, empty ink and toner cartridges. If you want to know what's going on with ISLAM Inc., please call me soon and she'll make sure you're on the group. We are going to be feeding the homeless on Christmas Day, and the people that want to do that, if they'll meet at Mason's house, for the details, you can call her and say, you know, what you're interested in doing. Muhammad Yunus' 11th birthday. Happy birthday. Way to go. All right. Please pray for Tariq, who's taking the test on Thursday. Kathy's parents are both ill. Please pray for them. Dr. Nasser's mother passed away in Pakistan from bone cancer. Please be praying for them. He was fortunately able to be there with her. But pray for him because his father also has dementia and he's dealing with that as well. So, Zane's family, Zane's father has been in and out of the hospital. Is he still in the hospital? Do you know, brother? He's not in the hospital right now. And please pray for our family. Our house will be sold Friday at 3 o'clock, inshallah. and we don't know where we're going from there. So we ask you to pray that Allah will make it crystal clear what we're supposed to do and where we're supposed to go. And but we will have 30 days to get out of our house. So
Why you have to?
well, let's talk about it after class. That's okay. I just want to ask you to pray for me right now. And for Kareem and for Sister Nasim and everyone in the class. But those are special requests for asking me to make dua. And I think my wife has something to say.
It's not about making dua, but I did want to mention that Sister Rizwana has some ninja hijabs to sell after the class. So last week she brought them, I forgot.
If you're interested in a ninja hijab, and that would only be for the females, hasn't been saying that. So guys, I'm sorry, but you're alhamdulillah, we will have Jeopardy today? Yes. All right. But what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be beginning to look at the tafsir from verses 155 to 157. I'm going to read it, and then we're going to be looking at the various meanings. If Allah wills, we might get to verse 161 today, and we'll see how it goes. And certainly we shall test you with something of fear, hunger, loss of wealth, lives and fruit, but give glad tidings to the asabarin, the patient. Those who, when afflicted with calamity, say, verily we belong to Allah, and it is to Him that we are destined to return. They are those on whom the salawat, the blessings, mercy, and forgiveness of their Lord, and it is they who are rightly guided. Now, what's really interesting is, what did we talk about last week?
Patience.
Well, we actually talked about verse 154 and how that those people who die in the cause of Allah are not dead, right? Okay. So look at the context of these verses. That when there is death, even death in the cause of Islam, which we talked about how it was misunderstood. I gave you a lot of proofs about how this is totally taken out of context. And I tried to teach you the truth about what jihad really means in the Islamic paradigm. So on the heels of that, Allah is now bringing a revelation to say to people, we are going to test you with fear. Now, surely those people that died in the cause of Islam, those early companions, were afraid. There were people that were being pulled apart because they embraced Islam. Literally, they were being put in these things and pulled apart limb by limb. So we're going to test you with fear, hunger, loss, and wealth. Loss and wealth, when we talk about wealth, what is part of our wealth? Our children. So people lose children. People lose their parents. That's a big part of your wealth. That's where you look to for shepherding, inshallah. You look to for guidance. You look to for comfort. And so Allah says that you're going to lose all of this stuff, that which you produce, but give glad tidings to those who are patient. So remember, we spent weeks talking about patience and what patience meant. The three areas of patience: the patience to be obedient, the patience to avoid prohibitions, and the patience for whatever fate Allah brings your way. That you accept it with gratitude, you accept it knowing that this is from Allah, that there's no mistake in this, and you actually accept it with praise. They are on those who actually get the blessings of Allah. So we're actually sort of coming back, but believe me, I'm not going to redo the patience teaching. I think I've done enough of that. So these verses do address patience again. Before examining the life enjoyed by true martyrs, we examined the virtues of patience and prayer in conjunction with verse 153. So, and among mankind is he who worships Allah as if he were able upon the very edge, that is, in doubt. If good befalls him, he is content with it, but if a trial befalls him, he turns back on his face. He loses both his world and the hereafter. This is the evident loss. And what we find is that people, when they are struggling, some people, when they lose a home, or they maybe lose a car, or they lose someone, we find that they stop praying, they get angry, and they are not patient. They're not accepting what Allah has brought into their world, so they actually rebel, and they do the worst thing for them. They detach instead of saying, oh Allah, I need you now. I really need you.
Inshallah, you will get a better room.
Absolutely. I have every expectation of that. In Surah 47 and verse 31, and surely we shall try you till we test those who strive hard for the cause of Allah. And al-sabarin. Sorry. Thank you. The patient. And we shall test your facts. The one who is a liar and the one who is truthful. So in other words, what are we saying here? We're recognizing that if you are in the cause of Allah, you will be tested. And so, recognize that the more committed you are to your faith, the more you sacrifice for the cause of your faith, the more you will be tested. There's a correlation there. I want you to see it in the verses, and you'll see it in other ahadith, so that you don't lose that awareness. Assalamu alaikum, brother. Jazakallah. Thank you so much. This is quite a gift to you, mashallah. I had my eyes checked and got new glasses, and then gave them my old ones, and for a week haven't had any glasses. So I'm very excited about having glasses again. I read a lot, so without them. Let's look at another verse. In Surah Ankabut, verse 2 through 3, do men think that they will be left alone on saying, we believe, and that they will not be tested? We did test those before them, and Allah will certainly know those who are true from those who are false. So there is an indicator in both of these verses, actually all three of these verses, that in order to find out if you are true to your shahada, if you are true to your commitment, that you will be tested. And that, again, is a whole other level, a whole other dimension of the need to have and develop in your life patience according to the Islamic paradigm. A patience where we are steadfast and constant no matter what has happened. I have not lost a moment of sleep knowing that I'm going to lose my home. I have not lost one moment of sleep about it. I have consistently said this is a great opportunity. Allah has something in store for us, alhamdulillah, and it's just going to be great. We don't know what it is, but it's just going to be great. In Surah 16 and verse 112, so Allah made it tasty, extreme of hunger, famine, and fear. It is a must for our souls to be nurtured with tests. In other words, it is the way we find out if we are true or false, as we saw in Surah Ankabut. There is the battle between truth and falsehood, fear and faith, ease and hardship, hunger and thirst, increase and decrease in wealth, birth and death, and living and dying. In all of these things, there's a test. Look at the vulnerability of a child when it's first born. That first few minutes of that child's life, you're waiting for them to pink up. Nowadays, nurses, they put them under the lights, they swaddle them, they check them out, then they hand them to you. But there's that. You can't wait to see this baby have all of its fingers and toes, and is this baby okay? But it's a very, very touchy, but living and dying is that way. Look at it when someone is dying. Look at the vulnerability of a dying person. If those of you who have been with somebody, as they were saying, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, those of you who have been with someone who's dying, the vulnerability of knowing that they're going to give up the ghost, that ruh is going to come out, is a very, very vulnerable time. And all of life, when we talk about living between fear and hope, in all of these cases, we are battling, we are tested, truth with falsehood. So I know the Quran says this, but syndrome. We are consistently tested. Are we going to obey or are we going to rebel? Fear and faith. I'm afraid. I can tell you that as a da'i, for the first time in my life, I find it more difficult right now than it was after 9/11. I'm experiencing greater hatred in my own personal experience outside than I did after 9/11. Allahu Alam. I don't know if anybody else has the same feelings, but it's tough out there right now. There are a lot of very angry people. I was actually talking about it this morning. My heart is broken because these people aren't seeing, they're not egalitarian. They're not actually looking at what's actually happening to Muslims. So yes, ISIS is hurting people in the world, but more Muslims are dying at the hands of ISIS than non-Muslims. So we absolutely, their acts are atrocious, they are wrong, they're haram, they're not Muslims, they're not the active Muslims. But we have to try to be able to get people to say, look at what it would be like if you were a Muslim living in Iraq right now. We have to have that kind of heart. A test is required to see if the believer will give what his religion requires. Because you don't know until the test comes. You do not know until that opportunity comes. Will you actually sacrifice? Will you sacrifice your time? And I always tell people, commitment is not in a word. People say all the time, I'm committed. I'm committed, brother, I'm committed. But they're not committed until they show up. You know, and I always use this example because one fell on me one time. Someone had committed to help me move a side-by-side refrigerator, and I decided I would try to get it down the steps by myself, and it actually pinned me in. I used to be quite strong and was able to handle, believe it or not, something like that by myself, but that time it didn't work real well. But fortunately, I didn't lose the refrigerator. But I'd been made a promise. A brother had told me, I'm committed, I'll be there to help you move that fridge. Well, he said he was committed, but was he? If he didn't show up? No, just words.
Yeah.
A test is required to see if one's religion has become dear to them or if they are just lip servicing the religion. You have to have a test. It's like an exam. The way we know if an attorney is ready to practice is he's got to pass the bar. Right, brother? We've got two of them in here. We don't want somebody practicing medicine on us if they haven't passed certain exams. We don't want somebody doing therapy on us unless they pass certain exams. So it's very important. Oh, right over there. A test is required to see if one is willing to sacrifice for its sake. No type of sacrifice or test is required for the bearer of worthless beliefs. If someone really doesn't love their beliefs, they will abandon them at the first sign of hardship. And we see this happening. We see people leave for minor things. They get ticked off because they don't get their way, or you say no. If I really want to find out if someone's committed to Islam, all I've got to do is say, let them ask me for something and we say no. And if I don't ever see them again, then I know that that thing which they wanted was more important to them than the faith, than learning about the faith. It's a problem when, as an imam, you can't say no to someone without fear that they won't come back to the class. Particularly when the no is correct according to Islam. The burden here is the personal price that one pays so that this belief becomes dear and valuable in the heart of the bearer. We know that the belief is not near and dear to the heart of many bearers because we know that many people are detaching from Islam. Assalamu alaikum. Well, people are not practicing. People are, it's very sad, but I've actually had people to say, well, I'm a cultural Muslim.
We admit that?
And yes, yeah.
Wow.
And it was interesting because 20-some years ago, well actually about 30-some years ago, I was studying Judaism. More than 30 because I was in New York. And I was actually studying with a rabbi and I was studying Judaism, and people would say to me, I'm a cultural Jew. They would just say that. And I said, well, what does that mean? I said, well, I'm not very religious, but I call myself a Jew. And nowadays, how many people have ever heard somebody tell you that I'm a cultural Muslim? One person and me. So only two people in the room have ever heard that. I've heard it.
Tradition, I follow tradition. That's what they say, not culture.
Yeah, well, that's okay, but
They actually admit it? No.
yes. I've had
never
people tell me that I'm not a religious person, I'm just a cultural Muslim. How many have heard something similar to that? Okay. So just look at the hands, folks. There is a detachment from Imam. There is a detachment from the real submission and surrender to this faith. And we need to, as we look at these verses today, according to how far we're able to get, as we look at these verses today, it is imperative that we clean our hearts and that we commit to this religion. Because there are hadith that say in the latter days we will have these huge masajid, but we will not have any people in them.
Yeah.
Or we'll have huge numbers. There's also hadith that will have huge numbers, but very little faith, very little iman. So we know that the numbers are going up according to the Pew Research Foundation. Tremendous, 20,000 a year in America. But where are they? If they are detached, and the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said that a believer who doesn't attend the house of Allah is like a fish out of water. He's flailing around. So let's take those believers that they don't feel safe to attend the house of Allah because they're going to get castigated, like I was this morning, criticized before I can even get in the door. What about those people that don't even have a class to go to? Where are they getting fed? When everyone experiences pain for the sake of religion, and every single time they are forced to give something up for its sake, it becomes even dearer and more valuable to them. And they become even more honored with it. I want to encourage everybody here to go see the movie The Letters.
What?
It is out now, and it's about Mother Teresa. I'm going to tell you, of course, you'll have a hard time believing this, but I cried from the beginning of the movie to the end of the movie. It's at the Winter Park Regal Theater.
The letters.
No, I'm sorry, the letters, like writing letters, and we went to see it at downtown at the Plaza at the Cobb Theater. I don't know where it is, but we went to the Cobb. I'm sorry.
It's showing at a lot of areas. I think it's showing in India this morning, it's showing at Western.
Again, apparently it's showing at the Westwood Mall. I didn't even know there was still
Yeah, the
a theater
Westwood
there.
Mall, the Argonne, up until Wednesday, so there's several theaters.
Because that mall is almost empty, right? I know there's a lot of gang activity going on there right now, so ladies, I would encourage you to go to another theater that might be safer than that one. There has been some criminal activity at that match that I'm scared for my sisters to go there. But please go see that movie. If you want to see a movie about sacrifice and someone who really loves Allah, who loves Allah more than they love themselves. Honestly, I cried. I was a mess. And there were only 4 people in the theater, thank God, because I might have disturbed the movie for some people. But go see it. Go see that movie. Really, it'll touch your heart, and you'll understand really what I'm talking about in terms of real sacrifice. Has anybody seen it besides me? Nobody's seen it. Okay.
You cannot rent it.
Not yet, because it just came out on the big screen. Nobody realizes its value until they manifest patience when tested. In Surah 37 and verse 102 and 107, and when he was old enough to walk with him, he said, "O my son, I have seen in a dream that I am slaughtering you. So what do you think?" Now, where do we think from Islamically? Man, you can't get the bonus points today. Anybody, where do we think from Islamically?
We're supposed to think from our hearts, but I don't think we do.
But we're supposed to think Islamically from our heart. Rasulullah ﷺ said, taqwa is here. So the Muslim actually thinks with their heart, and their heart has to be filled with the right knowledge in order to think that way. The brain will delude you. So he said, "O my father, do that which you are commanded. If Allah wills, you will find me to be of the patient." Then when they had both submitted, and he had laid him prostrate on his forehead, and we called to him, "O Ibrahim, you have fulfilled the dream. Verily such do we reward the good doers." This sacrifice that we celebrate as the holiest day in the Islamic calendar is where we want our hearts to be. That we are patient with whatever comes our way. But not just lip service. We demonstrate that patience because we are tranquil. We know that this is from Allah and we celebrate it. Sa'id bin Abi Waqqas reported that he asked the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which of the people are tested most severely? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam replied, the prophets, then the righteous, then those who are most like them, then those who are most like them from the people. A man is tested according to his religious commitment. So if his religious practice is sound, then his testing is increased. And if his religious practice is weak, then his test is reduced. A servant continues to be tested until he walks the earth without a single sin on him. What is the meaning of that? That every single test that you have is a removal of your sin. It's expiation for your sin. All the more reason why it's so important for us to have patience, to accept whatever Allah sends our way. Because it's expiation for our sins. I love this hadith. And so when I have had my bouts with cancer and stroke, the one thing I would say is, alhamdulillah, I know Allah loves me. I have no doubt that Allah loves me. And now He showed me another sign that He loves me. Isn't that something to celebrate? Isn't that something to say alhamdulillah about? When Allah is demonstrating His love for you by testing you, that's something to be grateful for. It is a sign of His love for you. But we often say, what have I done wrong? You'll see people say, why me, Allah? What did I do wrong to deserve this? No, you didn't do something wrong. You did something right. Your commitment is such that He's testing you more. He's creating the training ground, the boot camp, for you to be a better Muslim.
I have fibromyalgia.
In Surah 3, in verse 179, Allah will not leave the believers in the state in which you are now until He distinguishes the wicked from the good. So He's not going to leave you. So we must embrace that which comes our way from Allah. The testing of good believers by calamities and the wicked with environmental pleasures is to test our freedom of will. As we know, the other beings don't have freedom of will, so they don't have to be tested. Our freedom of will, this great gift that Allah gave us, must be tested. And Surah 33, verse 22, and when the believers saw the Confederates, they said, this is what Allah and His Messenger had promised us. And Allah and His Messenger had spoken the truth. And it only added to their faith and their seal in submissiveness. So if you look at the context of the Quran, when the test comes your way, it is to add to your faith. That's what it's supposed to do. Not make you leave, not make you detach, not make you check out. Check out time is when I start having tests. But it's actually supposed to put a seal on your submissiveness. It's supposed to make you more airtight in your faith. Like a Tupperware container. That's what it's supposed to do. But what do we see it doing? Because we're not teaching people this. This is a mashallah, brother. This is a gift for you. This is in contrast to what the hypocrites said in verse 12 of this surah. The divine promise to help with the divine promise of help and success is contingent upon our striving and faith. Nothing comes to the confident and the skeptical idler. Dangers and difficulties and conflicts with evil are foretold us, and we must meet them with fortitude and courage. Surah 67, verses 1 and 2. Blessed is he in whose hand is the kingdom, and he is able to do all things. The one who has created death and life in order to test you, and see which of you is best indeed. And He is the Almighty, the All-Forgiving. There's so many verses where Allah promises you to test. And it's very clear that these tests are gifts. If our Aqidah is flawed, if we believe that they are a punishment instead, how will that affect our faith? How will that affect our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Exposing the reality of the human being. In Surah 76, verses 2 and 3, verily we have created man from drops of mixed semen in order to test him. So we made him hearer, seer. Verily we showed him the way, so he is either grateful or ungrateful. Verily, we have made that which is on earth as an adornment for it, so that we may test them as to which of them are best indeed. The earth, the environment, is full of tests, full of grandeur, full of things that are luring us, calling us. Vacations in Hawaii, palm trees with fans. It's so glamorous. It's all calling us. I mean, I think I just took you out of the classroom just thinking. See how alluring the environment is, but it's a test for us. The environment has all kinds of entertainment for us, but it's a test. Will I be entertained, mashallah, by a verse of Scripture? Or will I be entertained by the world? And even nowadays we find that houses of worship in certain religions have begun to create entertainment for people. They do what they have to do to get the people there, to get the money they need to keep the building going. But is it inner strength? Is it actually my submission to God that they're getting increased? Or is it's entertaining my nafus? I like the feeling I get. In Surah 6, verse 165, and it is He who has made you generations after generations, replacing each other on the earth, and He has raised you in ranks, some above others, that He may test you in that which He has bestowed on you. Surely your Lord is swift in retribution, and certainly He is all forgiving, most merciful. So, there's a correlation here. If you want to be raised in the ranks of Allah, then you must pass the test. If you want to graduate from college, you have to pass each test and each course in order to go to the next course. That's why we sometimes have Algebra 1 and then Algebra 2, and then there's a prerequisites, right?
Okay.
Okay.
I want you to come to my class and say those words to my students.
See if they'll buy it. Human being is tested so that he may come to know the reality of himself and others. To know yourself is to know Allah. We've talked so often about how we purify ourselves, that we must know who we are, not be deluded about who we think we are, our alter ego, but know who you actually are. What are your demons? What are you doing that's not in alignment and harmony with Allah? And what are you doing that is? And how am I going to change? Every one of us should be working on something right now to increase, to pass another test, to know ourselves, to know Allah better. Life consists of constant testing. Testing with what is bad or testing with what is good. Either way. However, what is best for the believer may be found in what he hates. And what is bad for him may be found in what he likes. And this is from Quran. The true believer is the one who loves that which Allah has chosen for him. And no matter what it is, they say, Alhamdulillah. So if he tests him with something that he loves, he thanks him. And if he tests him with that which he hates, he is patient and thanks him in this cause as well. And this is 5 reasons why Allah tests us and our patience. To reveal the patient from the impatient, to remove our sins and reward the righteous, to purify the ranks and distinguish the righteous from the wicked, to emphasize the hardships of this world in comparison to the hereafter, and to expose the reality of the human being. All of these things we saw in the verses that we looked at, right? So these are just 5 reasons to remember why Allah does test us. Not because we did something wrong, not for punishment. We will get our punishment in the hereafter. In this life, it's a test. There are several ahadith that mention the rewards of admitting that the return is to Allah by saying, truly to Allah we belong and truly to Him we shall return. This statement is huge. There's so much virtue in asserting that we belong to Allah during affliction, during hardship, and during prosperity. It is the sunnah, it is the practice, it is the fard of the Muslim that whatever happens, they say, we came from Allah and to Him we will return. Alhamdulillah, with whatever. We also saw this in verse 156. Imam Ahmad reported that Salama narrated once Abu Salama or Sulaima came back after he was with Allah's Messenger and said, I heard Allah's Messenger recite a statement that made me delighted. He said, no Muslim is struck with an affliction and then says, Istirja, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, found in verse 156, when the affliction strikes and then says, oh Allah, reward me for my loss, give me what is better than it. But Allah will do just that.
Hold on a second, brother.
This is one that you should definitely take a picture of. You know, so when you lose your home or when these things happen to you, this is the prayer that you pray. Oh Allah, reward me for my loss. Give me what is better than it. And Allah says He will do just that. So is it a punishment or is it a gift? It's a test and it's a gift. It's not a punishment. And Allah promises you that if you do this, He will give you better. But what do most of us do? We cut off the spiritual hose because we complain. Astaghfirullah. We say astaghfirullah about what Allah has given us. What an oxymoron. Forgive Allah. Isn't that strange?
But the meaning is that Allah gave us, Allah is
Exactly.
Allah.
But what I'm saying is what actually people do is they say it and then with their next breath they complain. Isn't that a contradiction? So it means that do I really believe what I'm saying? Do I believe this part? That Allah will